the syllabus. Here we go. Here we get started. So, how do you read the syllabus? This is a very interesting Google search. So let's have a look. It's not actually a Google search, we've just made it up for you, but as you can see, so how do you read the syllabus? Firstly, read the working scientifically skills. That's really important. So there's a huge focus um, on scientific skills, which, and I mean, because the thing is, they know that you can, memorize content. Anyone can memorize stuff if they like really try, right? So anyone can memorize content. Anyone can regurgitate that in questions and stuff. However, what they want to see is they want to see if you have developed these skills, if you can apply these skills. So always start off by reading these scientific skills. So assess the, for example, students assess risks, consider ethical issues, and select appropriate materials and technologies when designing and planning an investigation. So in an exam, for example, you could be tested on this. And I'm just gonna get my highlighter out. Okay. In an exam, you could be tested on this, where, for example, they give you a study and they're asking you to consider the ethical issues of it, or they're asking you to assess the risks associated with a study or experiment. So the aim here is that you learn to apply that. You learn to actually think critically about all these different aspects of the scientific discipline. Then take notes of inquiry questions. Inquiry questions are your key, because essentially, after you've finished a module, after you've finished like learning everything under an inquiry question, you should be able to actually go back and answer the whole inquiry question. So this is, how does reproduction ensure the continuity of a species? That's the first inquiry question of module 5. So let's say if you were given that as a question, as let's say a 7 marker, you should be able to talk about everything that was under this dot point. So this is how you know if you've actually covered everything, if you're confident with everything, is when you can actually go back and answer the inquiry question completely. Finally, pay attention to the wording. So one thing that's now really important in biology and in all your other STEM subjects as well is the verb that is being used, right? So the word that is being used actually dictates how much you'll write, how you'll write, what you'll write. So pay attention to that wording. So evaluate, for example, is generally used for your higher mark questions in comparison to something like describe, which would be used for your 3-4 mark questions. So here the wording, let's have a look. So for example, investigate the response of a named Australian plant to a named pathogen through practical and secondary sourced investigation. So they want us to actually research and investigate the response. So not just get it from one source, but rather investigate from multiple sources what is the response. Then model the process in cell replication. So they actually want you to model these processes so that you better understand it. So really important that you read the question carefully. You read, sorry, not the question, you read the syllabus carefully. You also see things like evaluate this using examples. Using examples, they sometimes give the examples that they want you to remember, but they can also say including but not limited to, which can means you might want to research a couple of extra examples as well. So let's move on then. This is a little guide now to then read the syllabus. Alright, start off by reading the working scientifically skills, then take notes of the inquiry questions, and then pay attention to the wording. So here is the syllabus content. This is what your HSC biology year will look like. There are 4 modules that you have to complete. The first 2 modules are module 5 and 6, and then we've got module 7 and 8. Now your school may not do them in that order. They can start off with module 8 first and then work backwards. It doesn't quite matter as such, but it's obviously nice when they go back to front, because that way it's like, I don't know, I think ideas tend to build upon each other quite nicely in that process. But I mean, again, it doesn't really not the biggest deal ever. Schools generally tend to do it according to, like, for example, they think students will sort of I guess, benefit from learning first. So yeah, those are our 4 modules. Now you also have depth study hours that will be sort of in your assignments. That's where the depth study hours are coming in from. So let's have a look at what each module entails. So we've got heredity, which is our first module, module 5. In heredity, we are going to look at reproduction, we're going to look at cell replication, we're going to look at DNA and polypeptide synthesis, genetic variation, and inheritance patterns in a population. That is what we are doing today. In module 6, we're going to look at genetic change. We'll look at mutations, biotechnology, and genetic technologies. Module 7, now you look at infectious diseases, and obviously after having lived in the COVID era, we would all be pretty familiar with this. So we're going to look at what are the causes of infectious diseases, what are the responses to pathogens. We're going to look at immunity, so you actually get to learn a bit. And I say a bit because like what you learn is pretty, what we learn in, HSC biology about the immune response is pretty basic. There's a lot more going on, but it's still a very fun little intro into the immune response. And then we look at prevention, treatment, and control. And then finally we look at module 8, which is non-infectious diseases. So you definitely get a variety there. You're looking at infectious diseases, and then you're looking at non-infectious diseases. So non-infectious diseases and disorders, we'll be looking at homeostasis. So you should hopefully remember that word from year 11, homeostasis. We'll look at causes and effects. We look at epidemiology. And then we'll look at prevention and technologies and disorders. So let us get started.